And welcome to the Aftershock post-game show. I'm your host for tonight, Alex Morgan. I'm here with Anay Patel, founder of Quakes Epicenter. This is the man that started this whole project. Fantastic to have you back on the show, Anay. Anay's been on the Aftershock before. He was there last year when they got beat by the Sacramento Republic in the U.S. Open Cup. He was there when Matias Almeida was fired. Only big occasions, it seems like Anay joins the show, but alas, that was not the case tonight. 0-0 draw for the San Jose Earthquakes against the Portland Timbers. They had the opportunity to go third in the MLS Western Conference standings. They did not take it. They remained fourth. Anay, what stuck out to you about tonight's game? Was there anything in particular that you latched onto?
Yeah, I mean, I think Quakes fans will definitely be disappointed not to be able to get the 3 points here, facing a Portland team that didn't look particularly threatening at most parts of the game. I'd say the key takeaway is Daniel, continuing to be that rock in the back line, just a kind of a statistical anomaly, the way that he's keeping the Quakes in games. Yet another shutout for him. Disappointed not to get a goal, but certainly a great performance from him. They're
glad to see we're getting some love for Anay in the chat.
We love Clay. Yeah, it was a tough one for the Quakes. I think there were definitely some opportunities. Hitting the corner of the crossbar, Jeremy Mbobasi on that free kick, and then I think someone else also hit the post.
Tommy Thompson. How could you forget it was Tommy Thompson hitting the post? If he'd scored, I would have had to fire up the Duolingo, spend the rest of the night on Duolingo on the show here. But I think you're absolutely right. The main takeaway here is Danielle. I think Danielle right now is the only thing standing between, the San Jose Earthquakes and missing the playoffs, because, the Quakes have been destroyed in XG for the last, 4 or 5 games now. Tonight was another night they lost to the XG battle to the Portland Timbers. They had multiple chances, dangerous chances getting in behind, but Danielle came up big. There's that one save, which I wouldn't be surprised if it's save of the week from the header right off the line there. And he's one of the top keepers in Major League Soccer in terms of goals added. He's one of the top keepers in Major League Soccer in terms of save percentages. He's one of the best keepers in Major League Soccer in terms of goals allowed per 90 minutes. Daniel might just be one of the best goalkeepers in Major League Soccer. You think that's true?
Yeah, he might be. It's still a bit early. I think there were a lot of questions when he was signed, JT Marcinkowski being there. We've talked a bit about on this show how JT Marcinkowski is definitely a solid starting MLS goalkeeper. But Daniel might be that guy to just take it to that next level. So I think his performance is definitely something to highlight. It was definitely a very heavily rotated squad, which I think the last time this happened here at home, we had an international break. The Quakes also kind of played a similar game where nothing really eventful occurred. That midfield trio didn't really click on the level I think we wanted it to. But yeah, it's a point's a point, but definitely kicking yourself not to get 3 out of this one at home.
Yeah, and I want to stick with the Danielle thing just a little bit, because I think I have to eat my words here a little bit. I know that I was skeptical of that transfer when the Quakes made it over the offseason, because as you say, JT Marcinkowski is a solid MLS keeper. I think his stats are just about average, maybe slightly below average in Major League Soccer. He's a homegrown guy. Everybody loves JT Marcinkowski. And with that, being said, people were surprised that the Quakes added a goalkeeper, because there were lots of other areas that this team needed to fill in their defense, because they had one of the worst defenses in the league last season. And, you see the first few games of the season, the 2 goals against Atlanta United. I know we had some discussion about that.
Yep.
Few goals early in the season that he gave up, but the Danielle of those first 2 games and the Danielle that's played these last 5-6 games since he came back from injury, it looks completely different. I mean, his confidence, his shot stopping, even his distribution is better. Keep in mind, his distribution is not statistically one of his strong suits. I think JT Marcinkowski probably on the whole has the better distribution, but he's getting he's getting in touch with this team. He's able to find Tanner Beeson on those goal kicks. I know that's a play we haven't seen the Earthquakes bring out in a long time, but the play where they're posting Tanner Beeson on the halfway line and sending him those long calls, he's able to pick them out. He's all around just been excellent.
Yeah, the distribution has been a nice little plus. That was never really the selling point with Daniel. It had always been that he's a shot stopper. And I think a really good point that Colin and I highlighted and Jamin Moore highlighted in the most recent episode of the Aftershock, which you should definitely check out if you haven't, where they discuss a lot of the potential summer signings and evaluate the performance of the new players in the last year or so. One of the statistics they highlighted was that JT Marcinkowski is about a 70% shot stopper over the course of his career. Mm-hmm. Daniel is 80. 70% is bang average. It's not bad. It's not amazing, but it's not bad at all. Daniel being an 80% shot stopper is really quite something. So we'll see if he can continue to keep that up. It's been really nice to watch. I'm not sure when the last time we had a goalkeeper kind of stand on his head like this for the Quakes for consecutive games. So
certainly wasn't David Bingham. Bingham returning to PayPal Park tonight, getting roundly booed whenever he touched the ball. Yes. Former Quakes keeper was here for a few years, then went, God forbid, to the Los Angeles Galaxy. Now winded up at Portland. Didn't keep too many friends in San Jose. Somehow made beef with Chris Wondolowski. So somewhere Chris Wondolowski is watching and secretly happy that the Quakes did not lose here tonight to David Bingham. But I do want to touch back on some of the rotation that you mentioned earlier, because this was a team that had lots of absences, lots of international absences tonight. You had Carlos Guerrezo out. You had Carlos Acapo out. You had Miguel Trauco out. Who am I missing here? Help me out. There's got to be one more. Jamiro Montero out. Those are the four big absences that the Quakes had. Those are all guys that have been starters for the San Jose Earthquakes. We know this isn't a team with a lot of depth. I was worried about how they'd line up in this game, but what were your thoughts on the guys who stepped in? You had Judson stepping into the middle. You had Nico Shakiris returning to make his first start, I think, of the season. You had Paul Marie obviously slotting in at fullback, Tanner Beeson at left back. It seemed like a pretty solid rotation.
I think so. It's nice to be able to have that rotation in MLS. It's nice to get that extra inch out of those guys that aren't in the top roster slots on your team. You want to have the Tanner Beesons, the Paul Murrays, the Tommy Thompson, be able to step in and do a solid job. I think one thing I wanted to highlight was that midfield trio, Jackson Ewell, Nico Shakiris, and Judson. That's not a trio that we've seen start, I don't believe. And there were some shortcomings for sure, but it was really nice to see Nico Shakiris get those minutes, carrying the ball in those half spaces, finding those little passes. He's a really crafty player, and it was nice to see him and Cade Cowell, rocking the ball as well.
It's not a trio we've seen before, but it is a duo that we've seen a lot. I mean, you think back 2019 team, Judson. That is the Jackson Ewell and Judson double pivot. And so to see them starting again, together for the first time in what's got to be years, felt like a little bit of a throwback. It's not the same, though, is it? It's pretty clear this is not the Judson of 2019. I think it's admirable. Yeah. Just the extent to which he's been able to get caught up again, because for the last few years he's not maintained his fitness. He's not been game sharp, game ready. Tonight he was able to go in and put in a solid shift. You saw him getting sometimes losing focus and getting drawn out, sucked out of position. Allowing Portland to play those passes in behind him. That's where they had a couple of their dangerous chances. I think that the combination of him and Nico Shakiris sometimes on defense was just a little bit spacey. Yeah. So this isn't the Judson of 2019, but just the fact that the Quakes are able to, have those two players step in who were starting players, together not too long ago, in the absence of Carlos Guerrezo was solid. And then maybe we're focusing too much on defense, because going forward, it wasn't necessarily as successful as you would have hoped.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely weren't finding Christian Espinoza as much as we have been in the past few games where we've seen that offensive success. But there were a few flashes of brilliance from Nico Shakiris for sure. Jeremy Abobasi was doing well to check in and receive the ball at some times, but I felt that connection between Abobasi and the wingers wasn't quite there. Cade Cowell and Christian Espinoza. Christian Espinoza is always a threat, but I didn't feel there was too much to
tonight.
Talk about
tonight. Was he a threat tonight?
Not as much as we've seen in previous games. And Cade Cowell on the other side of the pitch wasn't doing much either.
Yeah, the wingers just really were not able to get on the ball today. You didn't get good distribution into wide spaces. Nico Shakiris, I think, was able to carry the ball really well. Keep in mind, Nico Shakiris is only 16. So the way that he is able to get on the ball, to stay on the ball, to beat a few guys and to muscle players off is really, really remarkable. But it felt a little bit like he would beat a few guys, pick his head up, and just wasn't able to find the right passes. He'd dribble himself into corners a few times, and it felt like he was dumping the ball. He would eventually make the pass, but it wasn't a good pass. It wasn't a dangerous pass. He was just dumping it. And he wasn't finding Christian Espinosa. Rule number one of playing for the San Jose Earthquakes is that you pass the ball to Christian Espinosa whenever that's possible. I don't think Nico Shakiris got that memo for this one.
No, it didn't seem like they were in sync. And there weren't really many runs behind the line either. I felt that Ebobisse was checking in and receiving the ball, but there weren't too many runs in behind the line. Same thing with Espinosa and Cowell. It felt like there were kind of moments where Cade Cowell, he felt like he should have made a run in behind the back, or Ebobisse should have made a run in behind the back. But, the ball just kind of fell and no one received it.
It definitely felt like Jebo was a little isolated tonight because we saw him get in the box a couple times on the ball with his, head facing goal. And then he'd get caught up with the ball under his feet. He would, be stuck between a shot and sort of like a half option to pass. He didn't really have the support he needed. He felt a little disconnected. And I mean, we've been saying it over and over again. Me and Jamin have been going back and forth on this for weeks now on the Aftershock, but I want to drag you into this debate. Is this a match where adding another piece to the attack, or having another left winger who can beat a guy in a dribble, or having a 10 who can distribute the ball, getting a new addition into the squad would have really made the difference?
I think that's got to be a focus going into this summer window. I know it's something that Jamin and Colin discussed in that episode prior to this one. I think the Earthquakes definitely need another attacking threat. And it seems like Benji Kikanovic and Yuseni Buda are, solid options off the bench, but they're not really getting it done where we're getting production out of them. So I think the Earthquakes do need to go out there and get someone that can, be a little more of a threat on that left side, particularly.
Yeah, and I don't get the sense that Luchi Gonzalez has a ton of trust in Benji Kikanovic and Yuseni Buda. Those are obviously, two guys who joined the Quakes out of college, who I think people generally like around the locker room, but they came in the 89th minute in a 0-0 game. That's not a substitution you make if you really trust those guys. He brought in Tommy Thompson before he brought in Benji Kikanovic on that left wing. So I think you're absolutely right. Chris Leach, the focus has got to be adding new pieces in the secondary transfer window, which we need to start a clock, a countdown timer here on the Aftershock. Opens in less than a month. July 5th, is that the right date? And the video that Anay was referencing here that everyone needs to check out, you can stop watching this show right now and go to the video that Colin Etnier and Jamin Moore, our dear beloved co-hosts, recorded earlier this week. Colin is the man who knows the MLS roster rules better than anyone else in the league. And so he was walking through with Jamin where the Quakes have room to add in their roster, where they have the cap space, and where they don't. My big takeaway from that video, the TLDR, is that the Quakes have space to make moves. The Quakes can buy down one of their 3 DPs using TAM. They're all in the, Christian Espinosa, they're all in the range where they can be bought down. And that gives them another DP spot to play with. They can always get another TAM player. They have the space in the roster. They have the international slots to make a big summer move. So that was my main takeaway from the video with Colin and Jamin. Is there anything else that you caught from that that's pertinent?
Yeah, I thought, definitely go check that video out. Colin's favorite day of the year is the day that the MLS roster salaries drop. So he did a really good analysis of it, as always. I think one of the other interesting things that he brought up in that video was related to making, the right signings in terms of positional and also kind of the type of signing that we want to make. So definitely go check that out.
And I got a chance actually to talk to Luchi Gonzalez midweek at the midweek press conference and tried to push as much as I can on to get clarity on where he's at in terms of new signings. He was pretty adamant he's not going to talk about what their priorities are in the transfer window. I think it's pretty clear, a left winger, a number 9 or a number 10. But he did say that they're in the market. And he did say that, what's important is a guy who can make an immediate impact and who can, gel in the team and fit in with the locker room, because it does feel like they have a strong culture right now. It feels like this is a team that likes each other, that gets along, and is all pulling towards the same goal. So you got to give Luchi Gonzalez credit for that.
Yeah, it's been a really successful kind of rebuild over the last year. And I think since you and I started covering the team, we've never had consecutive good signings. And I think Chris Leach and company have gone out and gotten some really solid players, between Acapo, Rodriguez, Nathan as well back in the day.
Who still is a San Jose Earthquakes player.
He is Mensa in the light of Nathan's injury, Jeremy Abobasi. So I think, John Fisher's been in the news a lot lately, talking about spending. I think he needs to give the green light to have the front office spend some money and, get a really dynamic player that can take this team to the next level and compete with the top tier teams in MLS, which we have already this year, I think, in certain moments.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And, you look at Luchi Gonzalez's coaching lineage. He comes from the Greg Berhalter assistant coaching staff. I know there's a lot of controversy in the U.S. soccer universe about Greg re-signing with the men's national team. But the one criticism of Greg Berhalter and that national team was that they weren't consistently able to find different ways to score. Is that a flaw that Luchi Gonzalez might be running into with this Earthquakes team?
That's an interesting point. I think this offense has been, on paper and even just watching, very Jeremy Abobasi and Christian Espinoza.
No player has more than one goal.
No, the two of those guys have a lot of goals, but there's not really any solid third place. So I think getting that dynamic player is definitely got to be a priority in this window.
And we're going to be speaking, once again, a reminder, to Luchi Gonzalez and a player in the post-match press conference coming up very shortly. So I do think we want to get some clarity here about, the international absences and how the Quakes were able to handle that. Because, again, this was a match in which the Quakes were beaten in terms of XG. And Luchi Gonzalez is focused on XG. That's something he values a lot and on chance creation going forward. But tonight they weren't able to find Christian Espinoza, and they weren't able to find Jeremy Abobasi, and relying on them too much is, to this team's detriment, because Christian Espinoza looks tired in the last 10, 15 minutes of that match. He's good at putting in crosses, but what I like him doing even more is attacking the defenders, getting him behind and taking men on and shooting. And he wasn't doing that as much tonight. In the last 10, 15 minutes, it feels like he's flagging a little bit and he's sending in crosses when he could be taking on men, cutting inside, having a shot. We know he has a bullet on both his right foot and his left foot. He wasn't really using it.
No. Not too many shots on goal today for the Earthquakes, for sure. I think that substitution in the 90th minute was an interesting point that you brought up. I did definitely see some tired legs out there. Jeremy Abobasi looked a little tired in moments. I think Christian Espinoza also definitely looked tired. I was a bit surprised to see those two, Yeseni Buda and Benji Kikanovic, come on so late. It was a set piece opportunity, but I would have loved to have seen. I would have loved to have seen that substitution happen earlier. And perhaps that might have something to do with the fact that we have 3 games in this 1 week.
So I love this comment from Arturo here. Appreciation for Shea Salinas in that very role we need right now. So on the Aftershock here, we've suggested numerous players that the Earthquakes could go out and try to sign in the transfer window. I've repeatedly suggested Diego Luna, who's not getting minutes at RSL, a U20 teammate with Nico Shakiris and Cade Cowell. We've suggested looking at fire sales that are happening at Inter Miami and to a lesser extent at RSL where they've got some new signings in as well. And we suggested looking abroad for a younger DP. With that said, my question is, if there's any one Quakes legend who you could add to this team right now, who would it be? I want to hear everyone in the comments try to answer that. If you could take any single Quakes legend, which one would you add to the team right now for maximum impact?
That's a great question. And you know what? I saw Chris Wondolowski and Steven Lenhart in the stands today. I believe it was Steven Lenhart. It's hard to miss.
He's been at Quakes games recently.
So, I mean, when I saw them, I was like, damn, it would be great to get Steven Lenhart into the game, whip some crosses in, see what we can do in stoppage time, that 2012 magic. So if I could somehow bring back that 2012 Steven Lenhart and put him on the pitch, I think that's who I'm calling on.
Well, and that would solve the problems that the Quakes have had in these late game scenarios where they've been on the wrong side of lots of comebacks. Maybe you bring back some of that Goonies magic and you turn the tables. Because this was a game they did have, and we should give credit, they did have a few chances in the second half. In particular, you look at Tommy Thompson, who I have to give him credit, came on and made an impact, raised the level, was able to, hit the post with the shot, was able to get, stuck in and win balls and distribute the ball into areas where he needed to be. So Tommy Thompson, have to take my hat off to him tonight, was exceeding the expectations that I have for him, which is not saying a lot. I think anybody who's watched this show before, knows that we're generally skeptical of Tommy Thompson, but he was back in a midfield role tonight. I think that was key as well. We saw Tommy Thompson playing in his natural position. When he's playing out of position at right back, playing out of position at left wing, of course that he's not going to succeed. He's not put in a position to succeed. But tonight we actually saw him where he's meant to play, and maybe seeing him there again, I reconsider it, and maybe he is worth keeping on this roster in this team. For the long term because of what he can offer in that number 10 position.
Yeah. I mean, I think Tommy Thompson, regardless of where he's playing, is a solid player that you can count on. And Colin talks a lot about roster value. He's one of those value guys. He's not, the highest paid player on the team, but he's going to give you that value. I know he's a point of debate on this show, and for Quakes fans too. I know he's been with the club for so many years. Jamin says he gets in the box and he wins penalties a lot. And he did do some crafty things in the box today. Almost saw him score a goal. He hit the post. But I like seeing Tommy as a sub. I don't think he's that starting level player at this moment. But if he's going to slot in at times and make an impact like he did tonight, even if it's a little one, positive one, I like having him on the team. And I think he's definitely probably a great locker room guy. And, he's been with the club his whole life. So
we're seeing a lot of good shouts here.
Yes.
Lenny and Gordon would be nice.
Bash Brothers.
That's in line with Anay right here. Bash Brothers. These are two good shouts. Marvin Chavez or 2012 Simon Dawkins. As long as it's not 2016, 2017 Simon Dawkins. As long as you can make sure that's not the case. And I would say actually of all the suggestions here, he is the one player who might logistically be possible to bring back. Currently playing with Monterey Bay FC. Down a few hours south.
Beat the Quakes in the Open Cup.
That's right.
Almost beat LAFC.
Yeah, no, that's
close.
right. Simon Dawkins got one back on his old team. Shea and Wando in their primes. This is an interesting question because Chris Wondolowski, his prime is 2012.
Yeah.
What is Shea Salinas' prime?
He had a really good second win in his career when Matias Almeida came to the team. There's a few guys on the team that really he was able to get a little extra out of. And I think Shea Salinas was one of those guys. He really thrived in that high-intensity running, pressing system. That definitely plays to Shea Salinas' strength.
Yeah, we could, I think it would be nice to see him, just the consistency that he offers on that left wing. He's going to take on his man, and he's going to go with a little shimmy and then go down the left wing and get in a cutback. I think that consistency going forward is something the Quakes have been missing. Alan Gordon, Bash Brothers, missed the Bash Brothers. This is a controversial one right here. Landon Donovan. You think Landon would slide into this team well?
I used to be the Quakes fan that was like, get Landon Donovan out of the club. I don't want to see him. But, I've grown to appreciate his contributions to the club, helping us win those 2 MLS Cups. I think, if Landon wants to come out of retirement and make an appearance again, who am I to say?
Here's the thing. I want people to disagree with us in the chat because I'm on the same wavelength. But what I think the problem is that Anay and I are too young to remember the heartbreak. We weren't Quakes fans. We weren't Quakes, covering the Quakes when Landon Donovan left to go to the Galaxy and inflicted all that pain on the Quakes. But I will say that at least in my head, Landon Donovan has had a redemption arc, and I think he's earned a lot of my respect, for the way that he's carried himself on and off the field, for his, the work that he's done in growing, sort of the local soccer movement in San Diego. When he was here for the 2016 All-Star game, I had the chance to talk to him. I think he's down to earth and genuine, and he's a voice that, brings reason to the U.S. soccer landscape, which on a week like this, is always good to have. So more Chris Wondolowski shouts right here. And we're getting some pushback as expected in the chat
Matias Perez Garcia. Now that's a name I wasn't expecting to hear.
Yeah, well,
he was statistically quite a good player. He created a lot of chances in terms of numbers, but there were a lot of frustrations for Quakes fans for other reasons, I guess.
I'm surprised that nobody has asked for a center back yet. Nobody's asked for a Clarence Goodson or Victor Bernardes.
Yep.
That might speak to the level that Rodriguez and Jonathan Mensah have been playing at this season. Tonight, they felt a little more disconnected though than we've seen them in the past. Rodriguez. I love the way that he steps into the midfield and he beats the first man and he makes the next pass. But sometimes he's liable for a few mistakes, and it doesn't feel necessarily like Jonathan Mensah is covering him in the way that we saw earlier this season. Is that a spot of concern for the Earthquakes looking forward?
Everyone loves a good ball-playing center back. I love when he steps up into the midfield, like you said, finds that pass into the final third. It's always very exciting to watch, but I think we'll
That's here.
All right. Hey, everyone. Good night. Let's start with the first question from Alex Warren.
Unmuted.
Hey, Lucci. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's good to talk to you. A draw at home. How do you feel about it? Does it feel more like a win? Does it feel more like a loss? Does it feel like you deserve the draw? Obviously, you have a lot of absences tonight, but it felt like the guys who stepped in were able to, stand up to the task.
Muted.
Yeah, those are fair comments. I think the draw was fair. I liked our foundation in terms of build up. We got into their half a lot. We didn't turn those finishing attack phases into shots, crosses and shots in terms of the volume that we want. But I'm happy with the foundation of how we move the ball forward, especially against their high press, right? And they're good defensively. And then without the ball, look, getting 0 goals against at home is always going to be positive, and we're going to grab that, and that was a collective effort against a team that is dangerous, has a dynamic and dangerous players, attacking players. And like you said, guys stepping in when their number's called and doing a really positive job for the team. Tommy, Jack coming off the bench, Nico getting a start, and doing a really positive job for the team. Judson, and that's, I think we showed a good reflection of us as a team that guys can step it up. So, a fair result. We always want to win at home in front of our family, our fans. This is our stadium. We're not going to be happy if we don't get 3 points. At the same time, adding to the sum a point is positive, and we want to keep moving in a positive direction. So we'll grab that and we'll rest and prepare for the next
one. Thank you. I'm believing there's a question now from Anay Patel.
Unmuted.
Anay, go ahead.
Hi, Lucci. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us. Could you talk a bit about Daniel's performance tonight, getting another shutout, making some pretty incredible saves as well?
Yeah, no, Daniel is. It's great to have him
Muted.
With him, staying healthy, and having another positive performance, which now is showing he's showing he can be consistent with these as well. So, credit to him, his teammates. JT almost came into the game tonight with the end of the game. If Daniel had to come out, and we would have been confident in JT getting the job done. So, but no, Daniel has been stepping it up for us, and we want to protect him as much as possible so he can do less work. But when he's called upon, he's ready. He's ready. And look, we hit the post a few times as well, that unlucky not to score our own goal. So, attacking and defending, we want to keep working, and congrats to the guys in getting the 0 against here at home, which is something we want to grab. And Daniel being important in that.
Next question, Michael Roberson.
Hey, Coach, another situation where it's not a loss here at PayPal. I mean, you get the tie, so you get at least 1 point. But once again, we talked about earlier about what happens during stoppage play and how the improvement is going to be. Now, this time they announced 7 minutes. So what was on your mind on the sideline? You said, we have 7 minutes to stave off this team. And they had a shot that hit the post that was very close to going in.
Yeah, that was an odd one. You know, some type of acrobatic hit that in traffic that ends up in the post. Look, we hit the post too a few times, and we were unlucky not to score our goal. But I would like to see us have more volume in the attacking phase. I thought we did a good job again bringing the ball forward, but just an extra combination. You know, Christian's one-on-one a few times, crosses getting blocked where maybe they're dropping earlier and they're creating an angle that's hard to cross the ball. You know, but having that extra idea, maybe cutting it back, having a midfielder on top of the box to recirculate it or even shoot. I think we got to shoot a little bit more, maybe outside the box, top of the box. But look, all things that I know, every time we put our mindset on improving something, I believe in our group and we do improve it. And I think that's something we want to keep improving. So, you know, at the end, stoppage time, like you said, yes, we have worked on making it San Jose time, stoppage time, trying to control the game and push the game. Especially at home as a tie, we wanted to push the game. We created a few crosses and corners at the end, and they didn't go in. So, you know, their chance maybe comes from us pushing the game and taking risks, but that's part of it. But I do see us maturing and improving in how we do manage the end of the game and whatever the scenarios are.
And I believe Alex or Nate, do you guys have a second
Unmuted.
question?
Yeah, I'd love to follow up on that. You know, are you worried about an over-reliance on Christian and Jebo to put away chances in the final third? You know, I think Miguel Trauco is the only other guy who's got more than one goal on the season. And how do you get other players, you know, more involved in that? What does that look like? Does that look like more players taking shots from outside the box, like you said? Does that look like, you know, trying out different types of overlaps or plays on the left wing? What does that look like to you?
Muted.
I think it's a bit of all of it, you know. Yeah, definitely Jabo and Christian led the team with statistically, you know, but you know, I'll say it again. I think I mentioned it last week. Cincinnati's first in the whole league, not just the East. And how many 1-0 games did they won? Trying to, you know, defending well, and then yeah, they have Brandon Vasquez, Lucho Acosta, and everyone else kind of tries to can't score here and there, you know. And maybe we're in a similar type of situation in terms of our turning chances into goals. So no, we got to keep. You know, we certainly want Christian and Jabo to continue on their positive trend, but at the same time, yeah, we want others to step up and score. Miguel, you mentioned a fullback. Like, we have fullbacks that have scored a few goals, and Paul certainly is capable also. And I think Capo and Miguel can still add to the sum. Set pieces, you know, our center backs, I think, can be adding some goals as well, and we know that, and they're getting really close. We think it's going to be a matter of time. And look, on the wing, you know, I think you mentioned the left, like, you know, Nico combining with Cade a few times today would have been, you know, can we get we've got to work as a team. I've got to work as a head coach to help Cade get on the end of things and create his own chances. You know, we got a nice little, you know, combination volley top of the box. Wasn't on frame, but I like the idea. And look, he made a lot of runs in the back post that didn't get rewarded. And he needs to just keep making. The highlight maybe shows the one that gets put in, but if he's got to make 20 to make one, then let's make 30 of those. And so we got to keep working. We got to keep working it. And I'm confident we'll add goals in from other players. You know, attacking mids too, right? Like Nico, Mito, like we mentioned. Jackson, those guys are getting in the box. Tommy almost scored today, playing from the midfield, getting in the box. So unlucky not to score. We want all these guys adding for sure.
And let's switch over to the Spanish portion and take one question from Pablo Maru.
Buenas noches, Luchi, ¿cómo está? Tengo una preguntita. ¿Cómo se maneja la intensidad y el ritmo en todo el juego? Cuando se termina este encuentro, ¿qué se habló en el camerino para los próximos 2 juegos? Muchísimas gracias. Buenas noches.
Y mira, decimos, en casa siempre queremos ganar. Estamos decepcionados si no ganamos 3 puntos para nuestros fanáticos, nuestra familia y en nuestro estadio. siempre queremos ser protagonistas y ganar. Al mismo vez, defendemos bien, 0 en contra, un esfuerzo colectivo y sumamos un punto, de repente cuando otros no, y es positivo para seguir sumando puntos. Y creamos volumen de cómo avanzar la pelota, pero en el ataque queremos ser más eficaz y buscar más volumen de cruces y tiros al arco, ¿no? Pero mira, la liga, yo digo, es una temporada muy larga y en cada estado de ida, sumar puntos es lo número 1 y lo hicimos, pero vamos ahora a recuperar y tratar de hacer lo mismo en un ambiente difícil contra un buen equipo, contra Houston. Y así lo hablamos en el vestuario.
Well, thank you, everyone, for the questions. Give us a couple minutes, and we'll try to secure a player here for the postgame.
Take care, guys. Good night.
So there you hear Luchi Gonzalez in the post-match press conference. What were your takeaways, Anay? I'm not necessarily inspired after that press conference, but maybe that's a good thing. The other half of my brain is thinking, look, the team is on a good trajectory. They're confident in their ability to improve in the process that they have. So the fact that you have a sort of uneventful 0-0 draw isn't the end of the world. It's not like in the past under Matias Almeida where everything was running incredibly hot or incredibly cold, and every bad result was the end of the world, and every good result was a massive triumph. Maybe in the new Luchi Gonzalez era, there are room for games like these that kind of just pass by.
Yeah, I think Luchi Gonzalez is a really solid coach, and he's proved that in this first half of the season in MLS. I think none of his answers were anything we weren't expecting. I thought that was a really great follow-up question from you, kind of asking him about who's going to be that third guy that gets on the stat sheet. So it was interesting to see him say that, hey, I need to start coaching Cade to get into the right spaces and make the right decisions. And I think there are certainly signs of promise. Another thing that he brought up was that every time this team has needed to, it has kind of grown and improved in areas of improvement. And I think that there is some evidence for that in certain moments. I think we've seen that maybe carelessness and stoppage time go away a little bit. But
I think that's absolutely right. Something that he mentioned that is worth dwelling on is that this was a game where the Quakes were not careless in stoppage time, where Portland had that one bicycle kick outside the box chance that they'd almost scored. But for the most part, the Quakes were able to hold the fort at the back. And even though, Portland had more momentum and were pushing, it didn't feel like the Quakes fell back into the instant block like they have in the past. It didn't feel like the Quakes were getting overwhelmed like they did in the past. And that is improvement from what we saw this team playing a few months ago, in the way that whenever they were in these situations where they were tied or had a lead, they were immediately dropping back and getting pummeled. That was not the case tonight. So it's worth highlighting that, and that, being an improvement that Luchi Gonzalez has been able to make over time, through these processes that he has. I'm not as convinced about his answer, about the over-reliance on Christian Espinosa and Jeremy Obobasi, because it sounds almost like he was kind of just spitballing, right? It's a little bit of everything. He wasn't sure whether it's taking shots from outside the box. It's easy to say that after the Miguel Trauco banger last weekend. It's a little bit of Cade Cowell on the left. It's a little bit of their, play through the middle, and, Nico Shakiris' distribution in the middle. It's like a ton of tiny marginal adjustments. It doesn't feel like there's a golden, like a silver bullet there, a golden ticket. It feels like the only way they get the only way they get an easy solution is if they add one to the roster, if they make that signing. It feels like he's kind of running out of ideas with the rest of this roster. But we're going to go to Christian Espinosa now.
All right, Christian, another situation with a tie. You can take that either way. It was great defense or lack of offense. So when you have a situation like this, how do you surmise it? What do you take from a tie? And also being able to stay without a loss here at the great park.
So The first thing I can say is we keep our goal in 0, so that's a good thing for us. We keep improving the defensive part. Now I think we can do better things in the offensive part. So we had a couple of days to improve in that and go to Houston and try to take the 3 points.
Next up, Alex Morgan.
Unmuted.
Hi, Christian. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to speak with you. You know, talking about that chance creation going forward, it felt a little bit, you know, like you weren't able to find space as much as you have in other games and get in behind the defense in the way that you have in other games. Why do you think that was? Do you think that was the distribution and people finding you in the right spaces? Do you think that was Portland being able to shut you down? What did you think? What did you notice going forward tonight in the way that Portland was defending you in the spaces you were getting the ball?
I think that the other teams now they are being more aggressive in marking us. Marking me, marking Shabo, marking Kay, because I think obviously they know if we have space, we are dangerous. But it's something that we can improve. We can improve in doing better movements, adapting in those situations when the defense are too tight in our back. And as I said before, we have now a couple of days to rest to improve in those things. We can do better. Go with everything in Houston.
And let's go to a Spanish question from Paula Maruri.
Muted.
Paula, can you hear us?
Full speed.
Let's go back to English and take one from Anay Patel.
Unmuted.
Hi, Christian. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. You've got a short turnaround here going to Houston, 3 games this week. What are the adjustments that the team is focusing on to get a little bit more offensive production going into those games?
Yeah, I think we can improve in moving the ball faster side to side to make the defensive line shift. And if we do a couple of times, we can find spaces in the wide areas, and from that we can create better chances to score.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Good night. We'll see you in the next one against Houston on Wednesday.
Thank you, guys.
So there you have it from Christian Espinosa after the Earthquakes 0-0 draw against the Portland Timbers. I think that press conference, confirmed some of the things we were just talking about, and I confirmed the fact that he's noticing he's getting marked more. He's noticing that teams are starting to shut him down more because they know if you can shut down Christian Espinosa, if you can shut down Jeremy Owosi, the Quakes don't have much else to throw at you. Anything else that you took away?
Yeah, I thought his answer in terms of the adjustments that they're going to make was interesting. Moving the ball quicker side to side to move the other team's defense around. I thought that was a really good observation. And I think, given the rotated squad that we had tonight, it was probably a bit more difficult to do that. You have Yamiro Montero missing, you have Carlos Guerrero missing. And I think those two are a lot better at doing that than this midfield trio might have been. Especially Judson, who, as we know over the last several years, is very good at covering ground, very good defensively. But going forward, making those forward passes isn't necessarily his strong suit. And he actually did have a almost shot on goal tonight.
He did?
I was very pleasantly surprised. But we know what Judson's strengths are. They aren't shuttling the ball or spraying the ball to the wings.
Yeah. I would be surprised if Judson has any passes going forward. Most of the passes are directly sideways or backwards in every game. I do want to shout out again Christian Espinosa, whose English has improved remarkably over the last few years. I think it was the first time that he spoke in English and answered our questions in English was just a few weeks ago on these post-match press conferences. And so his confidence in that regard is great to see. And I think shows part of the culture that this team has developed in the locker room.
And Colin and Jamin were talking about the fact that Christian's contract they believe is up this year. So that's going to be a big question mark for this team going into the summer. Do they want to extend him? I think they definitely do. So it's just a matter of when they want to get that done.
Yeah, there are a few contracts expiring. Christian Espinosa's is one. It's obvious they have to renew that contract, whatever it takes. He's been one of the best players in this team this season. The other that's up, I think, is a loan deal with Rodriguez. Is that right as well? What can you say about that?
Yeah, and Colin was also reporting on this that he believes that there is a option to keep him for another season in MLS, and there's also an option to outright buy him. So I think based on his performance thus far, I think it's a no-brainer that you want to buy him outright. But it kind of depends on the financials of the deal. If that buy-on price is a little too high, maybe they will still just extend the loan by one season.
And it is a bit of a weird one because he was signed mid-season, so the loan only lasts through this summer. So that's business that Chris Leach has got to clean up and deal with right away, right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to throw back a little bit to Luchi Gonzalez's press conference, and noting maybe the lack of enthusiasm or the lack of intensity after a game like this. In my head, I always think of coaches on the touchline being intensely focused, being completely absorbed by the game,
Right.
being high octane the whole time. I guess I never considered the possibility that a coach could be bored watching their team on the touchline, but that might genuinely be the case for Luchi Gonzalez here. And I say this only half jokingly because he knows that he has this team set up well to succeed. He knows that this team is resilient. He knows that the lineup that he has out there doesn't need a ton of adjustments. They're not gonna bring in 3-4 players off the bench and that are gonna make a huge impact. Maybe as a coach, it's sometimes nice to just sit back and see the fruits of your labor and allow yourself to be a little bored.
I think, Luchi in press conferences, and I think a lot of managers, not everyone is going to be a Mourinho in the press conference. Not everyone's going to be like a Matias Almeida where, it seemed like every time we did the Aftershock, what were we going to say? It was always a big question. So I think being that level-headed manager in those settings, what we as what people in San Jose, what the fans in San Jose have been wanting for so many years, in several years. I think 2012 was probably the last one, and that was the loss. So that's more than a decade. So I think Luchi, that press conference disposition, it reminds me a little bit of Oscar Pareja, who was at FC Dallas before Luchi Gonzalez. I believe when Luchi was the director of the academy.
Yeah.
But Oscar Pareja is definitely a passionate and fiery coach. I think he in those press conferences though isn't so animated, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think Lindsay Radnich here, who's one of the brilliant Earthquakes photographers, is right. He is very active on the sideline during the game. He's clearly intense. Tonight he was wearing a gray sweater, so he's not wearing the Portland Timbers colors. We've noticed a trend of Luchi Gonzalez wearing the opposing team's colors. It might just be that he didn't have a pink sweater to bring out tonight. Not everyone has that kind of versatility in their wardrobe.
We might need some sweater analytics on the Quakes Epicenter.
Expected sweaters.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a new stat we challenged Jamin Moore to bring out on this one. All right. Before we wrap around for our final comments here, I do want to shout out Quakes Epicenter and our Patreon because that is how we are able to do the shows through your support and the support of all our wonderful patrons. So I'm going to bring up the link here now, but with your support, $2 a month, you get free access to all of the articles that come out on quakesepicenter.com. You also get quarterly Zoom calls that we host with the community where we can maybe be a little more loose than we are here.
We're due for one
on the Aftershock. We're due for one. So if you join, that'll be coming up very shortly. In addition, for $5 a month, you can join the patron Slack channel, the best way to watch San Jose Earthquakes games. I no longer am as active on Twitter. I think I've accepted that is my fate, because I am spending so much time on the Quakes Epicenter patron Slack, and I worry sometimes that I bore everyone with sort of my internal monologue that just gets blasted onto the Slack during every game. But it's a fun one because all of the patrons are able to catch things that I'm not able to see real time. You have, 120, really well-trained, passionate, and super smart eyes on the game at once to show you things that you don't see. So that's one of the reasons why I really appreciate the patron Slack. And then we also have some things in the works heading into the Cali Classico, which is not too far away. So you might want to add on to that.
Yeah. So it's $5 a month for the patron Slack. And I know we talk a little bit about what we do with the money. And I think one of the main things that we've wanted to focus on this season is upgrade the production quality of the shows and work on some interesting ways of making it more, a really great production quality. So that's what we're working on upgrading. We don't have any concrete plans yet, but I think we'll be teasing some interesting stuff very soon here.
Speaking like Luchi Gonzalez, very
exactly, very poised, not revealing too much.
Yeah. But we do have exciting plans coming up for that Cali Classico game. So
yes, we do.
I know me and Anay have been talking offline about lots of cool things we're hoping to introduce. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and I'm going to throw it back to you, Anay, for your final thoughts on tonight's match.
Yeah, I think, the main points are Daniel is standing on his head, and he's really keeping the Quakes in these games. I think it was another game where the Quakes lost the expected goals battle, but still got the result. I think Portland was above 1 expected goals. I saw a 1.2. So Daniel keeping the team in the game once again, huge plus. I thought the rotations in the lineup were also a big part of the match, and I thought they stepped in and did pretty well, all things considered. I think in these 3-game weeks that we have, it's more better to do a retrospective at the end of the week, because there were some weird substitutions, bringing on someone in the 90th minute, bringing on Benji Kikanovic and Yuseni Buda in the 90th minute, which may seem weird right now, but perhaps given what we're going to field against Houston and against St. Louis at home here, maybe looking back on that, we'll have a little bit more clarity. So, Houston's a good team. They've just beat LAFC twice back-to-back, which is nothing, a very impressive feat in my opinion. So it'll be good to see how this Quakes team fares going into that match.
Yeah, and they should have some of those international players back next weekend, but I doubt they will be back for that Houston game because the international break will still be on, and they might be missing Cade Cowell as well. So you're gonna see the heavily rotated squad once again, and gonna see Luchi Gonzalez trying to struggle with the question of how to find goals for this team. This one was a dull one. I have to say this was, I think, the first scoreless draw of the season for the San Jose Earthquakes. So sometimes you just have to throw up your hands and admit that this was a more boring game of soccer that we just saw. But with that said, it was a good performance for the Quakes, and good even when they don't play as well going forward, to be able to maintain that draw, because we've seen them give up goals late, and they didn't do that after tonight. Personally, for me, my 2 highlights of the game, I discovered I liked Almond Joys tonight. That was brought me more inspiration and emotion than anything I saw on the field. There was also, for those fans in the stadium, there was a moment of joy tonight that not everyone watching on TV would have been able to catch at halftime. Yeah. They have one of those challenges where the goal is they bring out 4 fans, and you have to kick the ball from the goal line as close as you can to the center circle, as close as you can. And for the last 9 years I've been covering the Quakes, I've watched over and over again people fail miserably at this task of getting the ball as close as you can to the goal line. That was not the case tonight. Tonight, you had the third person in line got very close. Third person in line got probably within 2-3 feet of the center spot, and I was thinking, well, that's it. That's the winner. I feel bad for this last guy, and then the last guy steps up under pressure in
Yep.
that situation, having just seen the guy before him make it 2 feet away, and he rolls it right onto the center spot. Could be not a more dead center on the field than he rolled it.
Yep.
A 1 in a million shot. I know a lot of folks here are excited about this in the chat.
There's a video on Twitter too from I think the San Jose Earthquakes Twitter. So
Yeah.
very, very inspiring performance at halftime.
If they can get this guy on Sports Center top 10
Yes.
plays of the week, I think they have to consider that. Perfectly symmetrical in the middle. 1 in a million shot. I don't actually know what he wins.
Yeah.
Because nobody's ever done it before.
Yeah.
Nobody's
They're
ever
still
gotten
figuring
that
that
close. they need to take the next step and figure out what he's won here.
I think that's up there with Q clotheslining the fan. Although there's no video evidence of that.
There's
that-
no
that I
video
am
evidence
aware
of Q close on your fan, but it's got to be up there. It's one of the best in-stadium entertainment moments that we've seen. With that said, I want to thank everyone for joining us again tonight for another wonderful show here on the Aftershock. And we'll see everyone again on Wednesday night after San Jose's game against the Houston Dynamo. Then after their home match against St. Louis next weekend. So with that said, I want to thank Anay for joining us tonight. Without Anay, it would have been an Alex marathon tonight. I would have had to go an hour here all by myself with you guys. So really appreciate Anay for making it on tonight. And want to wish everyone a good night and safe ride back home from the game.
Yeah, and happy Father's Day to all the Quakes dads out there.
Absolutely.